Nigerian Correctional Service to generate over 5 billion naira from factories. Nigeria's foreign reserves increased by $1.22 billion in 11 months. And African economies face $200 billion revenue loss in 2020, says the IMF, just as stock markets continue to bleed in reaction to coronavirus. Welcome to this edition of Business Express, reaching you from Abuja, Nigeria's capital, on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. I am Amina Nujaim. Thank you for joining us today. Latest figures from the Central Bank of Nigeria shows that Nigeria's foreign reserves have increased to $34.65 billion. The report shows that the foreign reserves rose by $1.22 billion from $33.42 billion as of April 29, 2020 to $34.65 billion on May 11th, an increase recorded in 11 days. The reserves had slipped into a decline after hitting a high of $45.17 billion on June 11th, 2019, losing $11 billion to settle at $33.89 billion as of April 28, 2020. Meanwhile, the IMF says Nigeria and sub-Saharan African countries will likely lose around $200 billion in income to the current global economic and public health crisis by the end of this year. Head of Regional Studies Division, the International Monetary Fund, said on Tuesday that the impact of the coronavirus outbreak could set the region on a retrogressive course by wiping out all the developmental efforts it had made in recent years. Economies of sub-Saharan African countries are envisaged to shrink by a record 1.6% in 2020, according to an earlier estimate of the IMF Regional Economic Outlook. In the meantime, the Nigerian Correctional Services has received the full business case compliance certificate in respect of shoe and garment factories in parts of the country. The public-private partnership arrangement is expected to inject over 5 billion naira into the Nigerian economy.
What we have done today is to present the full business case certificate for the Nigerian Correctional Service to partner with the private sector to develop a shoe and garment factory at the Aba Correctional Center and also a tannery in Janguza in Kano. So the money is coming from the private sector. Those factories will provide all the uniforms that the Correctional Service and other uniform personnel require. So the foreign exchange that was previously used for that will be in Nigeria. It will also provide training facilities for both inmates and staff. It is being done on a build, operate, transfer basis. So at every time, those facilities belong to the Correctional Service. When the investor finishes, he will leave it for them. In addition, you know what is happening to the revenue of the government today? This investment will bring 5.1 billion naira of investment direct into the economy of Nigeria. And then you look at the value chain impact. At the textile and garments, you look at cotton. So cotton farmers will have revenue. Those who have granaries will have revenue. The same thing with the tannery. That is an area where Nigeria had competitive advantage before.
Now, similarly, the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, says the Apex Bank is ready to support researchers, science-based institutions, and biotechnology firms with 100 billion naira grants in the quest for a homegrown vaccine to fight coronavirus in Nigeria. The Apex Bank governor, who spoke at the commissioning of this day-doom testing, treating, and tracing and isolation center in Abuja, said the pandemic has had an unprecedented effect on the global economy, impacting all nations. The governor revealed that the coalition against COVID-19 has raised over 27 billion naira to the fund to fund this initiative.
Grants and long-term facilities will be provided to researchers to develop Nigerians' homegrown vaccines.
We thank all those who have supported us and also continue to appeal for more support so that by the grace of God, give another few weeks, we'll be done with this COVID-19.
And as governments enforce the wearing of face coverings in order to reduce the spread of coronavirus across the country, some Nigerians are seizing the opportunity to do business to help themselves survive now and even post-COVID-19. Let's now join Muplang Dakok on surviving COVID-19.
Many businesses decry low patronage even after the easing of the lockdown. Some innovative and creative entrepreneurs are, however, seizing the times to create wealth. Violet Onengiye is one of such women who is taking advantage of the high demand for face masks in Abuja and around the country to contribute to her family's welfare. Violet moved to Abuja shortly before the spread of the coronavirus and was trying to start a business before she quickly switched to making face masks. We found her working at home.
Venturing into face mask business wasn't planned. I actually made one for my husband and he went to work with it and came back and said people liked it, I should see if I could make more. So that was how I started making face masks. I saw it as a way of helping the society because at that point you see that the surgical masks that people were going for, it was in short supplies.
Businesses like this that sprang up as a result of the COVID-19 are likely to remain for a long time to come.
It also helps too financially because the little profit that comes in as much as it's not too much, it cannot sustain for a very long while. At least something is coming into the house to replace whatever has been used to stock up the house, to buy things to eat, the toiletries and the rest.
With the requirement for Nigerians to wear face masks in public places, a customer, Victoria Bassi, says she is glad she can buy cloth face masks since she doesn't have access to the medical masks.
The way she made it for me, I like it. Actually like it, and she has a lot of customers because of her work. So she takes time to do it to be suitable for people to wear it.
We are going to discuss surviving COVID-19 and issues around the virus and Nigeria's economy. Our guest is the Chief Executive Officer of Nigeria Economic Summit Group, Laoye Jeola. He is joining us from Skype in Lagos. Thank you so much for joining us today on the program.
Thank you for having me, Amina.
Now, looking at the situation on ground, definitely coronavirus has impacted negatively on the economy. What are your thoughts on these developments?
My thought, of course, for any Nigerian, the thought is not good because we are losing lives and we're losing revenue that we can use to make the life of our people better. But what again this provides us is that it provides us the opportunity to actually look inward and see how we can help ourselves. Because one thing is very clear from this pandemic, that after now it's not going to be the same again. People are going to first look at their own national interest before they consider other people's interest. And so this gives us the right opportunity to look at the policies that will enable us to take care of ourselves first, internally.
All right. Talking about policies and how it affects the Nigerian economy, particularly the people. Now, the budget has been reviewed. Now, in terms of the amendments and options government has in terms of bridging the gap of the finance deficit, what are your thoughts on the way forward?
Well, the good thing is that though our revenue had gone down, government realizes the fact that this is not the time that you will scale down on spending. And therefore, they have kept spending almost about the same level. And to do that, they've had to resort to borrowing. I mean, they've borrowed some money from IMF. They're looking forward to getting money from the World Bank and AFDB. Of course, beyond that, they will need to borrow locally. I mean, by either raising bonds or whatever it is they decide to do, they'll borrow locally. And in some cases, central bank will have to resort to what they call quantitative easing. One other thing that they normally should have done in times like this would have been, how can you sell some of our government assets? Or how can you begin to list some of the assets that are moribund? But in times like this, when things are low, when you say you want to sell, you may not get the right price. One other thing that government needs to look at, because it's not one thing to only look at money, how the money comes in. You must look at how do we even spend the ones we have. Part of the thing that government will have to do more is how do we reduce the cost of running government? We've had this discussion all. Mr. President has said that they want to look at the Oransaye report. But how can the government be more efficient? How do we spend lesser money to get value? And how do you ensure that even for the money we have more value? But one thing that will be important is to ensure that government deploys this money, whatever money we have, to where we can get maximum value that will make the life of our people better.
All right, now talking about maximizing the potential that lies within the Nigerian economy. Prior to this crisis, the country was looking into diversifying the economy so that income, the traditional dependence on oil, for instance, attention will be shifted somewhere else. Now, how do you see this diversification drive now? And let's talk in future, post-COVID-19. What do you expect to see?
Again, see, the irony of it is that when you look at the Nigerian economy, we actually have a diversified economy, but we're not tapping them enough to get us good money. Let me give you an illustration. If you look at it, you see services, you see manufacturing, you see agri, you see telecoms, many of such, and you see trade services. But how well are we mining this for value? Take agri, for instance. It accounts for about 23, 24% of the GDP. But most of what we get from agri is crop production. We don't add value to it. Even the land that we farm, the yield per acre is very low compared to even nations in Africa. So what does the government need to do differently? We need to pay attention to making our agri work. So we need to improve on our seedlings. We need to improve on farm practices and the logistics. We need to ensure that we have light even to rural areas so that all the things we lose, we don't lose. In fact, what I will say is this is time for government to look at what is called integrated rural development, where agri remains the center point and you can then build construction, other businesses around it.
Now, let me come in here briefly. You're talking about some of these things that employment comes to mind. Now, one of the issues that has reared its ugly head is unemployment in this coronavirus time. How do you see these things turning around?
You see, and if you look at it, Agric is still one of our largest employer of labor, at least the MSME areas. And I'll tell you why things can turn around. If a person who is a small and medium scale practitioner, if a person who gets 6 hours light per day can get as much as 12 to 18 hours guaranteed light per day, what that does is that that person can do more work, earn more money, employ additional people. If we use that same thing to make sure that we do not overtax the person and allow the person to actually build the business before we build the tax, because one of the problems is that if you look at taxes in the states in particular and the local government, their levies sometimes are very, very huge. I know now is the time that they need more revenue, but they should allow the businesses to thrive. So let's make sure that we do employment that makes people not poor. We do employment that can give them more money. So Agri can do it. The telecom industry can do it very, very well. The creative industry can do a wonderful job around it. So we have them. But we need to then give them that support. And we must do it holistically. They must be in sync. But more importantly, we must encourage our people to buy made in Nigeria. Because when these people do all of these things and we don't buy the products, you discourage them. So those are the has to be a change in our own orientation as people to make sure that we patronize these locally made goods. Sometimes we complain that they are not good, but we can build on their standards. As a growing up, when I was growing up, I know some nations when they do something we say that's inferior, but they've perfected the art. So we need to encourage all of these things. I mean, I was listening to your presentation before. Look at that face mask we're doing now. It's because we're short. Before that, people have said we don't want to use it. But we can move and be making things proper, much more perfect. And we then create for people.
Okay, now I'm talking about getting our acts together. Of recent, we've seen increased collaboration between the private sector and the public sector coming together to bring funds to handle this crisis Nigeria is facing. Now, looking forward, past COVID-19, do you see such partnership continuing, and in what direction do you see that happening?
It is a partnership we can't do without. I always tell people, whether you are public or you are private, you are all stakeholders in the enterprise called Nigeria. One of the things that government need to do from time to time is to continually engage private sector in even policy making, in decision making. I want to give it to them that in some extent they listen to some of the things we do, but when it comes to implementation, sometimes it's a lot different from some of the things we talk about. You know, there is this undue mistrust between government, those in private sector, and those in public sector. The public sector don't trust the private sector, and the private sector have a misgiving about the public sector. But we all need to work together as a nation. Now, unless we begin to work together beyond this raising money, we will move forward. So I look forward to a better work where we're open one to another, when we together sit down and define Nigerian plan.
Now, talking about definition, what does your organization and your group bring to the table, very briefly?
Well, you know that we are a think tank, and every year we support government, not only we do work together with government, but again, we support them from time to time. Even during this COVID, we're working with them. And even already they've begun the national plan, and we're working with them. We work with them from time to time. For us, it's not about money. It's about capacity. It's about intellect. It's about skills. It's about research. I will make that available from time to time to government.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your input. We have been talking to the Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Now, this is Business Express reaching you from Abuja, Nigeria's capital. The program returns shortly after this timeout.
Let me assure Nigerians that all COVID-19 intervention funds are safe in the Treasury single account, and that government is still open to donations in this regard. Government has opened special accounts with 5 commercial banks which are directly linked to the Treasury single account. Donated funds are safe in the Central Bank of Nigeria. For verifiable information about the funds and other financial obligations of the federal government, please contact us directly at the Federal Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning. The account details for the donations are as follows.
Oil prices failed and remain at about $30 per barrel in spite of Saudi Arabia's announcement of an additional cut of 1 million barrels per unit in its oil output. Let's see how the price of oil and other commodities on the domestic and global markets. Stocks recorded a marginal decline Wednesday at the Nigerian Stock Exchange. The All-Share Index lost 0.03% to close at 23,689.12 basis points, while market capitalization ended at 12.3 trillion naira. Volume of trade was 159 million, valued at 1.5 billion naira in 3,573 deals. FBN Holdings, Access Bank and UBA topped the trade this Wednesday, while Mobil, Total and Unilever advanced the most in the course of the day. And looking at global stocks, bled this Wednesday as coronavirus fears continue to weigh on investor confidence. Bosede Abel has an update of global market activity.
On the global markets, Africa stocks opened early trading of 13th May mostly on the red. Namibia's overall index, Nairobi's all-share and South Africa's JSE Africa Top 40 were negative, while Ghana's GSE Composite and Tunisia's Tunidex posted gains. European stocks fell sharply as concerns over a second wave of coronavirus infections and the timing of a vaccine weighs on investor sentiment. Stocks in Asia were little changed as caution remained over a recent resurgence in coronavirus cases in certain countries regionally as they start to reopen their economies. Shanghai Composite up 0.22% to 2,898.05. Hang Seng Index was largely flat as of its final hour of trading, and the Nikkei also declined 0.49% to close at 20,267.05. U.S. stock futures were lower. Dow Jones Industrial Average was 1.89% lower. The S&P 500 and Nasdaq futures were also negative.
And that's it on this edition of Business Express. We value your feedback, so keep the comments, observations and suggestions coming. Be informed all previous episodes are available on NTA's YouTube channel. You can also communicate with us on Twitter, and the handle is NTA News. Now don't forget the hashtag BigX. Remember to always wash your hand with soap on the running water or use a sanitizer as the world battles COVID-19. Business Express returns on Friday. I am Amina Nujaim. Thank you for watching.